Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. It's great to be back with you. Hope you are doing well. I am your host. You can listen to and watch me here on X and YouTube. We are live on both platforms, and you can listen to and watch me on Rumble. Please like, share, and subscribe because it does feed the AI algorithm. And lastly, please post your comments and questions below. It'd be wonderful to hear from you. And let's jump right into it. We are. Oh, I didn't pull it up. I messed up. All right, just give me a second here. I'll pull it up. All right. Now let's jump right into it. So this article, MAGA goes to Mars, from The Atlantic. Originally, we were supposed to cover this topic last night in Doc Space, but my fault. We did not do that. And but you know what? It was a great Doc Space, anyways. Talked about some fitness at the beginning. Got into the future of X, and we also covered some other things. Guests were fired last night, and so I'll show that link here at the end. But let's get into this. So this is by Marina Corin from The Atlantic, November 5th. So this was written just before the election. From what are we on now? It was last Tuesday, right? No, I guess it was a week and a half ago already. Oh, time's flying. But article starts off: if NASA's current schedule sticks, the next American president will oversee the first moon landing since the Apollo era and preside over the agency's plans for sending astronauts deeper into the solar system. Article continues: Elon Musk, the CEO of the world's most successful private spaceflight company, has made clear who he thinks that president should be. Of course, we all know he was supporting President Trump through most of the election, well, at least over the summer for sure, and then leading into the election, and even traveled with Trump on some of his outings, and then of course he was stumping for Trump as well in different states. So he was pretty active in the president's election process. So article continues here. This fall, he declared that Kamala Harris would doom humankind to an earthbound existence. I mostly agree with that. Whereas the article continues here, whereas Donald Trump would fulfill SpaceX's founding dream of putting people on Mars. Yeah, I would say that's true. Trump seems equally enthusiastic about Musk's space plans. Quote here: Elon, get those rocket ships going because we want to reach Mars before the end of my term, he said on the campaign trail. Right. So a lot of people are going to take that as marching orders. Must do this. I want this to happen before I'm out of office. But for anybody who pays attention to Trump and knows Trump, Trump knows. I'm not trying to read his mind. Well, I guess I'm reading his mind a little bit, but that won't happen. Right? I'm pretty sure Trump knows that's not going to happen. Getting human beings to Mars is a big challenge, and that's probably not going to happen within the first, probably within the next 4 years. Now, getting to the moon, that's a different story. We could definitely do that. That's possible. But getting to Mars, that's going to take a lot of planning. That's going to take quite a few years. But at the very least, President Trump is talking about it. Right? He's setting the stage for he's basically doing what Kennedy said back in the 60s. I think what he said, we're going to get to the moon by the end of the decade. But we need somebody to say that. We need a leader to say that. We need a leader to have that vision okay, it doesn't happen tomorrow, it doesn't happen next month, it doesn't happen next year, but we still need a leader to have that vision to say, yeah, we need to do this thing. Because if nobody says it, it's not going to happen. I mean, it's out of sight, out of mind, or excuse me, out of mind, out of sight. I get that backwards. I probably got that backwards. It's late. It's past my bedtime. Uh, anyway, so, a question I would have is, what did Harris say? Did she say, we're going to get to Mars by this time? I want to get to Mars by 2030. I want to get to Mars by 2025, 2040 even. So I ran, I asked Grok. Grok was pretty quick and simple. Hey, Grok, what did Harris say about this, about getting to Mars? What's her timeline? And Grok said she has provided no information about that. Now, she did say, in fairness, she did say that we would get to the moon by 2024 following the Artemis program to get astronauts back to the moon. But that program has been delayed. Surprise, it's been delayed. Like most engineering projects, it's been delayed. But anyway, let's move on here. So a Trump presidency, the article continues here, a Trump presidency could push America toward a new era of space travel. I would say would move towards just space travel. I mean, that's pretty much the era, an era of space travel has been commercial. And NASA, writing SpaceX rockets or Russian they're writing Russian rockets for a while. So we don't really have a space program per se, since we mothballed the shuttles. So it'd be nice if we took responsibility for that again, but here we are. So let's continue with the article here. A Trump presidency could push America toward a new era of space travel. And Trump has demonstrated his enthusiasm for space exploration as president. He created the Space Force. Yes, he did. He did create the Space Force. And I remember then a lot of people on the left, a lot of Star Trek fans were laughing at him for it. Because I think the SpaceX symbol, or sorry, not SpaceX, but the Space Force symbol looks similar to the Star Trek symbol. I don't have a problem with that. Article continues here. Otherworldly ambitions, though, can come with earthly costs. Yeah, there's going to be trade-offs, and it's going to cost money. Right, exactly. Are we pretending that's not going to cost money? Because it's going to cost money. Let's see here. Let's scroll down. So article continues. The American government is already relying on SpaceX to fly astronauts to space. Yeah, I just said that. Yeah. Provides satellite internet for operations across the U.S. military. Yes, they're doing that too. And help realize its plans to return to the moon. Right. The Artemis program, I believe that is NASA, but SpaceX would support that. So I need to do a little bit more reading on that as I delve deeper into this topic. But that's going to be for another episode in the future, possibly. Article continues here. A Trump administration could increase that codependence, right? Further embedding SpaceX and its CEO in the framework of American governance, right? Well, yeah, isn't that true for any company that gets involved with the government, like Facebook, Amazon, yeah, AWS they're involved with the government, and so on their infrastructure platform, the government does play around in there. So there's some places that are just for them. So there's, I mean, Bezos isn't with Amazon anymore, but would they ask the same question about Bezos? So, I mean, that's the real world. The government's going to interact with companies, especially in the United States, with the market like ours. Let's see here. So NASA, article continues here. NASA has always used private companies to fulfill its greatest ambitions. But Trump could essentially outsource the imagination driving the future of American spaceflight to Musk. Well, I don't think there's any imagination right now. it seems to me there's seems to me Musk is the imagination. Musk is, well, let me put it another way. Musk is the only person with imagination. I don't think anybody else. Well, let me take a step back. Jeff Bezos does. What is it? Blue. Um, I should know this. I should really know this. Anyways, Bezos has his company. Um, what's his name? Virgin. Virgin has it. I don't remember that guy's name. I should know this because I watched Shark Tank. This guy's been around for a while. But anyways, there's Virgin as well. Virgin is also working on it. So it's not like there's no imagination in the marketplace, and I'm pretty sure there's other companies as well that are coming up. But I mean, is it only NASA? Are they the only ones that should have imagination? Because it seems to me the market is pushing space exploration further. Well, at the moment, it's pushing it further than the government is. In the past, it was just the government, but that's because there was no market for it. So anyway, that's probably a different conversation. And I wrote down. I have some. Obviously, I wrote down some notes about this, but I had some questions about this. It seems to me Trump would be the science president. The science president, I said. And that's because he's the one who wants to explore space. He's the one that's legitimately seems excited about it. And I remember 10, 15 years ago, people on the left were very excited about exploring space, but all of a sudden now they're not. And there could be a number of reasons for that. But I would think that that would be their guy, would be President Trump. But obviously that's not the case. So anyways, that was just kind of my question, my thought on that topic. But let's move on here. No matter who is president, Musk will play a role in America's future in space. NASA has hired SpaceX to develop a version of Starship, its biggest rocket yet, to land astronauts on the lunar surface by the end of the decade. So I guess we're looking at getting back to the moon by the end of the decade. I still think it could happen within the next 4 years, but that's probably just I'm being ambitious in my thinking and not considering how engineering projects work. And I should know better that it's probably going to be delayed a few times. So 4 years is being really ambitious. Let's see here. The agency will also likely rely on the vehicle to make its Mars dreams a reality in the decade after that. Yeah, so we're looking 10, 20 years now. Right? These things take a while. But again, we still need somebody, or maybe a couple people to say, hey, we need to go do this thing. Somebody's got to have the vision first. And it seems to me in this past election, the people who had that vision, that was President Trump, President-elect Trump. We'll just call him President Trump because he's going to be president again, and Elon Musk, of course. This has been on Elon's mind for a long time. I didn't hear that same rhetoric coming from Harris or President Biden before her. It was a lot of Trump's a Nazi. Those MAGA people. There was a lot of that type of rhetoric. It wasn't a visionary type of rhetoric like, hey, this is what we're going to do for the United States, or this is what the United States is. Let me rephrase that. This is what the United States can accomplish. I didn't hear anything like that. So there's no vision. There's no vision to their language. So that's where was I here? All right. So article continues here. SpaceX has launched Starship prototypes steadily over the past year from its South Texas base. Yeah, you can go on YouTube and watch those regularly. Those are fun. And article continues here, and seeks to dramatically increase its annual cadence of test flights from 5 to 25. Yeah, they're gonna need to increase their production, and of course they'll get better at it as they increase their production. It's like building vehicles. Companies get better at building vehicles year after year after year. And so an interesting engineering question is, how does, let's say, Dodge, how does Toyota keep pumping out vehicles on what appears to be on time every year. Well, they've optimized their engineering processes. So internally, they have some really efficient systems. They probably have good documentation too. And you probably heard me here on X complain about documentation sometimes and how engineers are terrible at it. They are terrible at it. But in the case of the auto industry, they seem to be pretty efficient. And my hypothesis is that you can't be efficient unless you have good processes and good documentation. So I imagine if, let's say, Dodge were to let me in and let's say look at their Durango line, the documentation for the Durangos, they would have really good documentation. Now, why that is, I mean, I could give you the simple answer and say, well, they just have good processes and have people that do it, but they probably have a system in place and it's probably taken a while to do that. That's my speculation. But with, going from 5 to 25 test flights, I mean, that's a lot. And so they're going to have good processes in place in order to pull that off, right? Because as the number goes up, there could be potential issues with problems, safety, so on and so forth. But if they can get their systems down and optimize those, then it should just become repetitive. It should become safer, ideally. They might have a crash every once in a while, but if they can keep those numbers low, then they'll be sitting pretty good. Article continues here, but according to Musk and other company officials, the Federal Aviation Administration, which is responsible for approving rocket launches, is holding them back from testing Starship and sending commercial payloads into orbit as quickly as they'd like. So I believe that. I posted recently, was it last week before, maybe, the conversation between Scott Adams and Naval Ravikant. And Naval talks about how we're behind in drone development to the Chinese. And Naval's claim, and I believe him, is that the reason why we're behind is because of the FAA. There's so many restrictions that our development is being constricted. And because our development is being constricted, our competitiveness is being constricted. And Naval even goes as far as to say that because of that, there's going to become a point where we get too far behind. The Chinese beat us, and so then they have drone supremacy. And he argues drone supremacy is on the same level as nuclear supremacy. Not nuclear energy, nuclear weapons. That type of supremacy. I was going to let that one sit there for a second. So not only is, based off what I'm reading here, not only is NASA restricting our ability to be able to develop and compete with drones, we want to have that supremacy. We want to have it. We don't want to let anybody else have it. And second, it's also constricting our ability to be able to compete or develop and compete in space, because the Chinese aren't going to slow down. The Indians aren't going to slow down. Well, I don't think we have to really worry about the Indians, but the Chinese. So I understand regulation, but it's to a point where now it's becoming a national security issue, not just on one front with drones, but on a second front with space development. And of course, we learn a lot. We learn a lot from space development. We develop a lot of technology from that. Technology we've benefited from the early Mercury programs and beyond, and Mercury and Apollo programs. We've benefited greatly from that over the past few decades. But it's gotten to a point where if regulations become too constrictive, then we're not going to benefit from certain things 40, 50 years down the line. Like I have this hypothesis that we're 60 years behind in energy. And the reason why we're 60 years behind in energy is because everyone got freaked out from dropping nuclear weapons or nuclear bombs on Japan, which is fine. Right. Okay. I hear that. But nuclear energy is different from nuclear weapons. And because of that scare, we haven't developed nuclear energy at the level that we should have. I mean, should have, could have, but didn't. Right. I mean, we can't go back. But my concern is that we're going to repeat that again because we're scared of something. We're not going to develop it for our benefit because we're viewing it like a movie. It's the same thing with AI. We're scared of AI because of Skynet. We're scared of AI because the loudest person in the room is talking about AI as being Skynet. But if you talk to myself and you talk to other engineers, scientists, people who know more about it than I do, that people are conveniently ignoring, they'll tell you, yeah, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, there's some concerns here and there, but what it's making it out to be, what other people are making it out to be, no. Just be smart about it. So anyway, let's kind of got off on a tangent there a little bit. I think it was, I feel like that was related. So let's move on here. So a newly reinstalled, article continues here, a newly reinstalled President Trump, who once asked NASA to hurry up and squeeze in a Mars mission before the end of his term. That's awesome. That's pretty cool. Would presumably take no issue with a pressure campaign against his own FAA to remove regulations. Right. He should do that based off of what we just talked about with respect to drone development and space development. He should do that. Because it seems to me if this organization is working against the national security benefit of the United States, then it's anti-American. Maybe that's too far. Maybe that's too strong of a statement. But I feel like these things are important. And we're going to have to and we're going to have to put on our big boy pants and make some decisions. We're going to have to consider some trade-offs. Either we can have these nice things and keep pushing the envelope, or we can go hide in our houses and then wait for everyone else to dominate us. Those are our two options. And it doesn't sound like President Trump is interested in the second option. Sounds like he's only interested in the first option, which would be the correct thinking on this. And so the second thinking hinders, go in the house and hide and wait for somebody to dominate you. That hinders our ability to be able to develop and compete. I mean, obviously it does. Anyway, let me see if I can find here. Was that? All right. So continue here with the article. He could instruct the agency to relax its rules, even give Musk some official or unofficial power over it. I think he's already going to give Trump and Vivek power over DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. I don't know how well that's going to work. Government tends to not be very efficient. Is that going to actually be a government agency? So can a government agency actually be efficient? That's going to be interesting to watch that. I don't think so. The libertarian in me is coming out. I don't think that's possible. So article continues here. Trump has promised to instate Musk as his head of Government Efficiency Commission. Yeah, DOGE. Conveniently named after the crypto. Such an appointment could lead to all sorts of conflicts of interest and perhaps even unprecedented results. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's all sorts of conflicts of interest in the United States government. I don't think they would be the first ones to have any type of conflict. I don't think that's a thing. But okay, I mean, okay. And such an appointment could lead to all. Okay, so I'll just read it again. Such an appointment could lead to all sorts of conflicts of interest and perhaps even unprecedented results. Yeah, I imagine the results would be awesome. I imagine the results would be awesome. I mean, we're not doing anything right now. At least that I know of. I'm not hearing any vision. Anyway, quote here: "You have potentially a high-level senior advisor and the person who owns the largest and most capable private space company in the world, with a direct line to the president of the United States, pitching the Mars mission in 4 years." Yes, yes, I want the most capable. I want the yes, yes, I want the most capable person to have a direct line to the president. Yes, I do. I do want that. Why would you not want that? It seems insane. Of course, I want that. Who said this? Casey Dreyer, the chief of space policy at the Planetary Society, who has written extensively about the politics of America's moon and Mars efforts, told me. Quote, "We don't have historical examples of that. No, we don't. We do not. NASA could not make agency officials available for an interview before this story was published because they were busy in a DEI meeting." No, it doesn't say that. I made that up. Oh, and I forgot to put it down. There we go. Sorry, I'm reading off a piece of paper as I'm scrolling down. So, because I have my notes on my paper, so it keeps me in line. I apologize. Let's see here. So we'll scroll down here. So, article continues here. Unshackled from the FAA, SpaceX could run dozens of Starship missions in the next 4 years. Awesome. Which is exactly what NASA needs in order to start dropping astronauts on the moon and beyond and achieving those feats before rival nations do. Right. That's exactly what I've been saying. It's exactly what I've been saying. If we don't do it, somebody else is going to do it. If we don't have air supremacy and drones, the Chinese are going to do it. Do we want the Chinese to have that over us? If we don't develop our space program and compete using market forces and the most capable people like Elon Musk, do we want the Chinese to do that? I do. I'm making faces right now, by the way, when I do that, but nobody can see that. And by the way, I do see like a lot of you listening to me right now. So thank you. So yeah, what was my note here? Yeah, so we could develop and accelerate. Exactly. It's exactly what we want to do. Article continues here. Space travel is an itch that the United States, under any president, seems unable to resist scratching. Yeah, because it's our thing. We're explorers. We've been explorers since the beginning. That's in our DNA. In the United States, we are cowboys and explorers. That's who we are. And we haven't stopped being that. We're still that today. That's our culture. I embrace it. You should embrace it. We should all embrace it because it's awesome. Quote here: we do it because we can, and because we probably will not be satisfied until we do, says John Logsdon, a space historian, once told me. Musk has long argued that the future of the space human species depends on reaching Mars. Yeah, we'll watch a video here in a second once we're done with the article from Musk. Government officials may not use the same vocabulary as Musk, but they have bought into his vision nonetheless. Right, they should. Right, because he's the leader of this. He's leading this charge, which is why you want him involved. And it's probably the reason. It's a good reason why Trump should win, because Musk is more likely is going to have more incentive to implement his vision. And I don't disagree with his vision. His vision is smart. Let's see. Continue here. In recent years, former top officials in NASA's human spaceflight program have taken jobs at SpaceX. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of cross-pollination, of course, between government and civilians. It happens all across industry in science and engineering. You have contractors, engineers working in military installations, weapon stations, naval weapon stations, Air Force, and vice versa. Just depends. Um, I personally don't work in that area, but I do know people who work in that area, so I have some limited knowledge on that. Article continues here. In the meantime, though, more SpaceX flights and more power for Musk could be messy or even dangerous. Right. It's going to be dangerous. It's going to be messy. And by the way, people are going to die. Yes, people are going to die because this is dangerous. If we can limit the number of, we want to limit the number of people who will die by trying to create as efficient systems as possible. If we get messy, then more people are going to die. But if we're smart about it, even if we take our time, take a little bit more time, be a little bit more thorough about it, that'll probably save lives. More testing, lots and lots of testing. You're gonna need lots of testing. More testing than management wants to even hear about, because management doesn't want to hear about your testing. They do not. Article continues here. As Starship development has quickened in recent years, SpaceX's rate of worker injuries has outpaced the industry average. What is the industry average? Or what is the industry standard? What is the industry average? I don't know. The article doesn't say. These are my questions. I wrote these questions down when I was going through this article. When I was reading it before now. What is the difference between SpaceX's rate and the industry rate? It's another question I have. What are the industry total numbers? What is SpaceX's total numbers? That is not in the article. None of that is in the article. It just says, as Starship development has quickened in recent years, SpaceX's rate of worker injuries has outpaced the industry average. But that's all it says. It doesn't say anything else. Rate and total number are different things. I mean, could it be a percentage over the industry? Could it be a 0.5%? I don't know. It doesn't say. Let's continue here. Federal and state regulators say that SpaceX has disregarded environmental rules at its launch site in South Texas, violating the Clean Water Act by releasing industrial wastewater during launches. Okay. The company has said that the water is not hazardous. By the way, I have to assume it's not hazardous because the article doesn't give me any more data to actually go look at. I don't know. I mean, were they found guilty of that? And perhaps, article continues here, and perhaps most concerning, where a Trump administration could clear hurdles for SpaceX, it could also embolden the company's chief executive, a man whose conduct is often questionable at best. What conduct? What did he do? Is he acting like the average American? If he's smoking pot, I don't care. I don't care if he's smoking pot. Lots of Americans smoke pot. I don't smoke pot myself. I don't smoke dope. But a lot of Americans do. I don't care. I mean, it's not like he might be around heavy machinery, but he's probably not operating heavy machinery. And I assume he's smart enough. I'm pretty sure he's smart enough to know that he shouldn't be doing that. So, I mean, I don't know what they mean by conduct. What conduct? What questionable conduct? And again, like I said earlier, I don't think it's a problem if they clear hurdles for SpaceX, considering what I'm reading here. And then, of course, the interview with Scott Naval. And I'm pretty sure Naval is right. I mean, the dude has a lot of credibility. A lot of people find him extremely credible. And I find him credible. So I don't think he's lying about that. And that's concerning. And that was before I said the FAA is constricting our ability to be able to develop drones. The Chinese are beating us on that front, and of course, the FAA is constricting our ability to be able to um, build and deploy, or develop and accelerate our space hardware, our rockets, our ships. So I don't have a problem with the Trump administration clearing hurdles. I don't have a problem with that at all. Even if it's messy, I don't care at this point. I don't care because the alternative, we already know what the alternative is. Article continues here. Recent reports alleging that Musk engages in regular conversations with Russian President Vladimir Putin led NASA's chief to call for an investigation. Okay. I guess somebody has to explain to me what the problem is with that. Musk is a very powerful person who owns a lot of companies, and he has a lot of business across the planet. Vladimir Putin is the leader of a country. They're going to talk to each other. Would you rather them not talk to each other? Maybe we should talk to Vladimir Putin and stop a certain war in Eastern Europe. That might be a good idea. Let's see here. Just scroll down. Don't worry about this. Don't worry about the article. I have the rest of the article here on paper. So I will read it. NASA has previously acted in response to comparatively mild Musk antics. Okay. In 2018, the agency ordered a review of workplace culture at SpaceX, which was preparing to fly NASA astronauts on a brand new spacecraft. After Musk smoked weed on Joe Rogan's podcast. Yeah, see, there you go. He smoked weed. By the way, I thought the left was supportive of weed smoking. Yeah, I don't care about that. And if he smoked weed on the podcast, I don't know what that has to do with workplace culture. He's outside of work. Article continues here. The Trump administration didn't stand in the way of that investigation, but that was before Musk became former president's number one donor and certified hype man. Yeah, there we go. That's the language. That's the language. Basically, what was my note? What was the note I wrote here on the side? This article sounds like it was written by a Democrat operative. Yes, it does. So yeah. The Trump administration didn't stand in the way of that investigation, but that was before Musk became the former president's number one donor. Okay, I reread that. I do that sometimes. I'll reread something. A Putin-related inquiry under a second Trump administration is unlikely. Trump, who has praised the Russian dictator and refused to vocally support Ukraine. I don't support that. I don't support that war. Haven't the Ukrainians lost a generation of men? Who would support that? That's insane. Should have talked to him in the first place and ended it. But I know some of you here watching are probably going to say it's a money laundering scheme. But I don't disagree with that, actually. By the way, you're not going to get a disagreement from me. I would rather see people do business with each other so that way they don't kill each other. I want people to be able to do business with each other so they don't kill each other. The Russians and Ukrainians should be doing business right now, not killing each other. War is dumb. I understand it. Obviously, I'm a vet, so I get it, but war is still dumb. Let's see here. Yeah, okay, so he praised the Russian. I don't care. Refused to vocally support Ukraine. I don't support Ukraine. Would sooner hop on a three-way phone call with Musk and Putin. That's a funny line. It is a funny line. It's a funny line. Yeah, probably rather talk to those people than talk to you. I'm talking to the person who wrote the article. Article continues here. Already with SpaceX's growing inventory of Starlink internet satellites, Musk has tremendous control over how the world communicates. and has maintained Starlink's independence from the US government and others. How so? How does he have tremendous control over the world? I mean, the space, I mean, X right now, we're here on X. Yeah, there's control there. But you don't have to use X. You're not forced to use X. You can leave X. People come on X and they'll be on here for a month, 2 months, 3 months. They tap out and they leave. Yeah, I stole that from you, Walker. I stole that from you. Yes, they tap out and they leave. So nobody's forcing anybody to be on X. We're all here right now. I have 20. Really, I have 20 people watching. Okay, so we're here. We're all here because we want to be here, not because we're forced. Is Musk making people use Starlink? Is he forcing them to use Starlink? Isn't he giving away most of Starlink? He's giving a lot of that away. Is he making any money off of that? By the way, he should make money off of it. It's his piece of technology he developed. He should make money off of it. It's like I view Starlink as like cable. I don't know. Does anybody else view Starlink like cable? That's how I picture it in my head, like it's cable. But that's just me. Yeah. So how many people use Starlink globally? How many people use Starlink per country? Data's fun. Data's a lot of fun because you can use data in all types of way, and it's just mostly bullshit. And for those of you who follow me, you know I say that often. By the way, I try not to swear too much in these. So yeah, let's see. Musk has tremendous control over the world communicates. I already read that part. Let's see. Let's go down here. But if President Trump asked government efficiency advisor Musk to, say, shut off Starlink services over a NATO ally or a nuclear power, one wonders how Musk would react. Well, that's your decision, not mine. That's a decision that's made at least a senior officer level, at a senior administrator level. If you're going to have Starlink as your communication system, you're going to make that decision, and then I assume you're going to plan out some contingencies. Well, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? Musk isn't just going to turn it off, because I imagine they've all figured that out already. What happens in this situation? Somebody in the room has had to have asked the question, well, what happens if Musk decides he wants to turn it off? I can't be the first person, some rando engineer on X who's the person who asked the question. Oh God, please don't let it be me. I can't be the first person who had asked that question. But that's how this article is written. It's like nobody was smart enough to ask the question. Let's see. All right, so we're moving on here. I got too much more. We don't have too much farther to go. Article continues here. A Harris administration would, of course, approach Musk differently. Musk has publicly mused about why no one has attempted to assassinate Harris, and suggested that Harris would order his arrest if she wins the presidency. Well, I'm not going to get into that. I'm reading that differently than the author is writing it. And maybe that's just because I have a lot more interaction with people who are Trump supporters. And I know he didn't really mean that when he said it. That was in jest. Let's see here. The article continues. That's far-fetched, even if a Harris administration might be less reluctant to investigate the billionaire's ties to Putin. Wasn't the government investigating Musk? Haven't they been investigating Musk? Like multiple companies? I thought that had been happening. So doesn't Musk have some concern, rightfully have some concern, that he would actually be arrested if she won, based off of his previous experience of being investigated? That seems reasonable to me. Article continues here. No matter who takes the White House, to spurn SpaceX would mean hurting the U.S. space program. Right. Boeing bungled its recent mission to ferry astronauts to the ISS so badly that SpaceX has at least a temporary monopoly over astronaut launches from American soil. Yeah, because NASA doesn't have a program. Because we've been outsourcing our program for the last 20 years since we mothballed our shuttle fleet. The Russians were giving us rides for a while, and we were paying them for it. Well, of course, we should pay them for it. And now SpaceX is giving us the ride because now we're mad at the Russians. And it's because we were supposed to have these vehicles years ago. I'm pretty sure it's over budget and overdue. Article continues here. The American, and we're, by the way, we're on the last paragraph here. The American space program needs Musk, and he knows it. Without SpaceX, NASA astronauts could fly around the moon a dozen times and never touch down. I don't think NASA is going to get back to the moon. I don't think that's going to happen. And the Artemis, I think I said this earlier, the Artemis program, they're supposed to launch the moon this year, but that project has been delayed till next year. And I be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if it was delayed till 2026 or 2027. Article continues here. NASA's own rocket is supposed to get them into lunar orbit, but Starship is their ride to the surface. That leverage raises a worrying, if unlikely, possibility. Earlier this year, Musk told colleague Damon Barris that he is willing to accept a Harris presidency, but only if, after review of the election results, that's reasonable. By the way, Harris should do that in reverse because that's our system. I know probably a lot of people here are Harris fans, but that is our system. And if she said she wanted to review it, that would be reasonable. By the way, as I understand, that's what Trump wanted to do in 2020, but it's turned into this other thing. Article continues here. It turns out that Kamala wins. Dreyer suggested this hypothetical scenario. What if, and the quote here is, what if Elon Musk just declares SpaceX won't work with the Harris administration if he considers it illegitimate? I'm sure he would. He's not a dick like that. Musk is certainly laying the groundwork for election denial. Well, maybe he is. I don't know. What do you think? I don't think he would do that. I think he would play ball, and it's business. Article continues here. Appears to be primary preoccupation on X these days. Although such a decision would put SpaceX in breach of various contracts and cause tremendous turmoil, it would also make clear who controls American spaceflight. Yeah, that's not how things work in the real world. He's not going to do that. And we already know he's not going to do that because President Trump is going to be president again. And I don't think he would have done that if Harris would have been elected. So that's the article. Yeah, that's all 5 pages right there. We're going to move over to the video now. Hopefully this works. So I'm going to go over to that if I can figure this out. There we go. Easy. All right, here we go. This should work. I tested it earlier, so you should be able to hear this.
And technically, being a multi-planet species would increase the probable lifespan of civilization and life as we know it. So, I mean, humans don't live forever. But just because we don't live forever does not mean that civilization cannot live much longer than we do. Civilization lives much longer than any individual human. So, this is not about like escaping to Mars. This is simply, I mean, I will die probably long before Mars is a self-sustaining civilization. It's just, I think, something we should do in order to have a much longer probable lifespan of civilization.
I think that's why it was important for Trump to win. Generally, I try to keep these videos fairly neutral with the articles, but I have my own positions as well. And I think it was important for Trump to win because now that takes some heat off of Musk, and Musk can focus on some of the things he needs to focus on because he's the one leading this rodeo. He's leading the pack for this. So this is going to get me into my final 3 questions. So first question, do you agree with Elon Musk that becoming multiplanetary will greatly increase the lifespan of humanity? Right? I think he's emphasized in the past, talked about in the past about how it's important, one, for security, uh, to be able to get to Mars and even other planets to protect our species, not just our lifespan, but protect our species as well. What if something happens to Mars, or not happens to Mars, but what if something happens to Earth? So you'll have your own answer for that. Feel free to post your question or post your comments below on this video. Yeah, I'd love to hear from you. See what you have see what you have to say about it. Question number 2: do you believe Democrats will attempt to help or compromise? And by compromise, I mean like work with President Trump to support and push lunar and Martian missions. Do you believe the Democrats will do that? Or question 3: or do you believe Democrats will throw a wrench in Elon's multi-planetary quest for supporting President Trump? In other words, they're going to be mad that Musk supported Trump, so they're going to be dicks. That's the last question. So, were there any questions I missed? Were there any questions you wished I would have asked throughout this? Thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. There are actually 20 people watching me. That's pretty cool. I wasn't sure if anybody was going to be on. I know other people were in spaces. Real quick before I go, I'm going to jump over here and shamelessly promote DocSpace. Here, let's see if I can find which one it is. Is it this one? No, it's not that one. It's not that one. Yes, it's that one. Let's see that. All right. So we just had DocSpace last night. We were competing against the Tyson Paul fight, but we had a great showing, and the guests were fire as usual. We talked about some fitness. We talked about the future of X. We got into some of the mechanics of how to grow your account and how to eventually be monetized. Jay talked about that last night. Jay's a frequent guest, and so that happened. So DocSpace occurs every Friday night at 8 p.m. Central Time. So if you're free and able and you'd like to join us, drop in. If you drop in and you speak and you participate, I put you in the article when I post it. I haven't posted the article from yesterday yet, but probably tomorrow or Monday morning. It's tradition for me to add everyone's name in. And then if you have something, let's say you're promoting, I also put what you're promoting into the article as well. Other people will see it. That's growing. That usually gets a lot of impressions and a pretty decent amount of views and likes for those articles. So those do well, and I imagine they're going to continue to do well as DocSpace progresses. There's going to be a DocSpace number 5 is going to be next week. I will be taking the following Friday off for Thanksgiving. I haven't determined what I'm going to do yet over Christmas, or how that's going to work with DocSpace. Regarding this, I probably will do these on Saturday nights going forward. I wanted to do this because we missed this topic last night, and DocSpace will probably end up covering this topic next week. I haven't quite decided. I'll decide tomorrow what the topic's going to be. That'll be posted Monday morning. Monday morning, you'll get the DocSpace for next week, and that'll be pinned, of course, to the top of my feed for the entire week. And I leave so that's pinned all the way up through Friday. And then, of course, we have DocSpace on Friday nights, and then I leave that pinned tweet up over the weekend. So sometimes there are people that can't make it, and matter of fact, there are people who are unable to make it, and so they want to go back and listen to it. So I leave it as a pinned tweet over the weekend, and then that gets archived into the article. So if you see the article afterwards, the link will be inside the article along with all of the handles for the people who participated in the DocSpace, because I also want the DocSpace to have, not only do we talk about interesting things in different things and sometimes weird things, but I also want it to be a network space as well. So we do go around and I give everyone an opportunity to give their 30-second elevator speech or elevator pitch. You get longer than 30 seconds. I just say 30-second elevator pitch because that's what everyone else in the industry that does networking, like Business Network International, Toastmasters, Chamber of Commerce. If you've ever participated in those as a business or small business owner, they use that terminology. So all I've done is I've taken that terminology and I've brought that into the X sphere and embedded it within DocSpace. So that's an extra added value for you. So feel free to drop in. It'd be great to talk to you. It'd be great to meet you. Thanks again for watching. This has been a lot of fun, and I will see you in the next episode.